My 29F husband, 28M, have been together for 7 years and married for 3. We have 2 beautiful daughters that mean the world to me, and I'd do anything for them, but I feel nothing towards my husband anymore. When we got together I adored him. He was loving and fun to be with and wanted to do things with me. But once we moved in together, all he would do was point out my flaws. It got really bad at one point and I asked him why he bothered being with me if he disliked so much about me. He apologized and things got better for a while. His employment has always been unsteady, but at the time it didn't bother me much and I assumed he'd grow out of whatever funk he had fallen into. He did not, but it all really started to bother me once I got pregnant with our first daughter. I had hyperemesis and was horribly ill for half my pregnancy. I worked full-time and paid the majority of our expenses while he worked part-time at a box office. Again, it didn't bother me. I made enough that his contribution was more than enough for the 2 of us. But right after our first ultrasound he quit his job. I did not make enough to support us, so I ended up working 80 hours a week while horribly ill and pregnant. I figured he was freaking out and things would go back to normal soon. He didn't work my entire pregnancy. We got married a month before I had her. I still thought he'd shape up. He watched me struggle with postpartum depression. He watched me bawl my eyes out about having to return to work when she was 6 weeks old. He watched me stress and borrow money and never once tried to step in and help financially. I had an emergency C-section with our first, and second was extremely painful for me even 6 months after she was born. But all he did was nag me about us not being intimate. He was a good father to our daughter, but not a provider or a very good husband. All of my attempts to talk with him turned into all you care about is money. Finally my depression got so bad that I had a mental breakdown when she was 7 months old and quit my job. He finally stepped up and got a job, but he didn't make anywhere near as much as I was, and after 6 months it became clear I'd need to go back to work. I started working part-time and he quit his job the day I started. We ended up being asked to move out of our rental house a few months later as I was unable to keep up with the bills and the landlord decided to sell. Rent was doing a crazy spike at this point. We ended up in an apartment that was $2,000 a month in the ghetto. I pressured my husband into getting a job because there was no way I'd be able to afford this. He did. A week after moving in we found out I was pregnant again. The second go with hyperemesis. This pregnancy was even harder than the last. I was still responsible for all child care, and the majority of cleaning and cooking. I still worked full-time. At 20 weeks he came home in the middle of the day and told me he quit his job. I tried to support him and help him find another. He resented me for it. After a few months I resented him as well. I made a plan to leave once I went on maternity leave, but I ended up getting him a job through a friend a month before I gave birth. I had a lot of complications due to stress and me working 80 hours a week again while caring for a toddler in my off time. My husband told me I was selfish on my birthday for asking to sleeping and him get up with our older daughter because I was 8 months pregnant and working every night to keep us in our apartment while he stayed home and played video games. As I said, he started work a month before our second daughter was born. I had to have another section. I was depressed. I was the only one taking care of both kids as my Phil had to go home a few days after I got out of the hospital. 3 weeks after I gave birth, before I was even cleared to be intimate, my husband tells me he has been thinking of cheating on me because we never are intimate anymore. I cried my eyes out. We talked after and things have gotten much better now. Our kids are 3 years old and 8 months now. We are trying to fix things, and things are getting better, but I have no feelings towards him anymore. I'm here because our kids should have both parents, but most days it's a chore to even look at him. I play the supportive loving wife hoping those feelings will come back, but all I feel is sadness and a little disgust. I don't know what to do. I don't hate him, and don't want to hurt him. Talking about my feelings always leads to more trouble, so I've bottled this up, but I'm not sure I can stay for 17 more years like this.